Absolute shock. The Seattle Seahawks are on the verge of taking the field with broken connections. Literally. I'm Ethan Carter, a veteran who lived through the glory of the boom era and some cold, hard nights of defeat. And today, I've got news that could decide if this team soars or plummets. We're talking injuries in the secondary, Charbonnet with a foot issue, a new signing, and the star who promises to make history like we've never seen before here in Emerald City. It's all tied together by one central question. What defines a true Seahawk when everything seems like it's about to fall apart? Wait till you hear how this all fits. Is it redemption or disaster? All right, my fellow Seattle Seahawks fan, before we get into the details this Saturday with the latest on our team, a quick request from me to you. If you're someone who follows the Seahawks Insider Report and you dig our analysis but you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. It is absolutely crucial for the channel and for our community of Seahawks fans to keep on growing. Thanks so much for your support. Can you even imagine a Seahawks defense without Witherspoon, Julian Love, or even Emenwari on the field? Because that's the exact nightmare we're flirting with this week. The latest injury report left the entire fan base with its heart in its throat. Devin Witherspoon is still dealing with that knee pain and is expected to miss another game. Julian Love is battling a persistent hamstring issue, and Nick Emenwari, who was already out last week, is still feeling the effects of an ankle sprain. Those three guys being out would dismantle the entire structure of our secondary. And it gets even more complicated when you look at the offense. Zach Charbonnet, who started the year with hopes of taking on an even bigger role, is listed as doubtful because of a foot problem. That means Kenneth Walker III, coming off a monster performance against the Steelers, is going to have to carry even more of the load in the run game. And that's a double-edged sword. The more he's used, the higher the risk of new injuries, something that's unfortunately been a constant in his short career. The rotation falls to George Halani, who looked exciting in the preseason, but hasn't really been tested in a game that counts. Without Charbonnet and with the offensive line under a microscope after some ups and downs in the first 2 weeks, the responsibility of keeping the offense balanced becomes a massive challenge. But the deepest hole is on defense. Without Witherspoon and Love, the secondary loses its instincts, its aggression, and its experience. And that puts pressure on the whole system. The linebackers will have to cover more ground, the pass rush will have to be even more efficient, and the margin for error on tackles drops to practically zero. The slightest hesitation could mean an explosive play for the other guys. And if there's one thing the Saints know how to do, no matter how weak they might seem, it's how to exploit that kind of space. The older fans, the ones who lived through the times when the Seahawks defense was synonymous with intimidation, know the weight of seeing this unit weakened. There's a specific kind of pain in watching the secondary look vulnerable. It's like they ripped the heart out of this team's identity. There's still time to turn it around, but that window is closing fast. And if the drama on defense is already messing with our nerves, Charbonnet's situation is the kind of unknown that could change the entire pulse of the offense. Does he even get on the field, or are we going to have to put all our trust in a combo of raw talent and hope? How in the world do you lose a war over a toe? The answer might be at the end of Zach Charbonnet's foot, a tiny, almost trivial detail that threatens to completely upend the Seahawks' game plan against the Saints. Everything seemed to be lining up for Charbonnet to have a breakout year in 2025. He was coming off 2 solid, dependable seasons, and a lot of people saw him as the new owner of the position, even surpassing Kenneth Walker III in terms of consistency. But in week 2, reality hit hard. While Walker was having a renaissance on the field, running with aggression and vision, Charbonnet was stuck in the mud, grinding out a pathetic 10 yards on 15 carries, and he left the game hurt. He hasn't practiced since. The diagnosis, a toe injury affecting his balance, his cuts, his acceleration. It's the kind of problem that might sound minor, but for a running back, it's almost like playing with the emergency brake on. The question now isn't just if he plays. The real question is, if he does play, will he even be effective? And if he doesn't, can Kenneth Walker handle being the workhorse for week 3? His track record isn't exactly encouraging. Walker missed time in both the 2023 and 2024 seasons with injuries, and as incredible as he was against the Steelers, 105 yards on 13 carries, running him into the ground could be an invitation for another breakdown. The team knows it. Mike McDonald knows it, and that's why George Holani might be more than just a plan B. Holani showed energy, good reads, and vision in the snaps he got during the preseason. He's not the kind of player whose name gets you fired up, but he might be exactly what the team needs, someone to keep the chains moving and let Walker catch his breath. But he's still a rookie, still a question mark, and when you're depending on question marks to win in the NFL, you almost always end up paying the price. Without Charbonnet, the offensive playbook gets a lot less diverse. The short passing game to the running backs, which was starting to pick up steam, loses its punch. You become more predictable. And with a defense in tatters, like we just talked about, controlling the clock with a solid run game becomes even more critical. Any fan who was around for the Shaun Alexander era knows the value of a reliable back. And that's the drama here. Just when it looked like Seattle had two complementary backs ready to carry the load, one of them gets sidelined by a toe. There's something cruelly symbolic about it, because sometimes a season turns not because of one huge mistake, but because of one small injury to the right player at the wrong time. And it's exactly that kind of instability that makes the next move even more curious. Signing a guy the Saints know all too well. Coincidence? Or just getting ready for the chaos? In the middle of all this chaos with injuries and uncertainty, a quiet move by the front office might have been the most strategic play of the week, bringing Shane Lemieux onto the practice squad. Now, the name might not make you jump out of your seat, but the context here says a lot. A former player for both the Saints and the Giants, Lemieux knows what it's like to be thrown into the fire and have to answer under pressure. He's had his ups and downs, some questionable performances in New York, but lately he's shown he can be a solid, functional backup. He was cut by the Saints at the end of the preseason, but he obviously left enough of an impression to be remembered by Seattle, just in time for the week we face his old team. You think that's a coincidence? Not a chance. On a roster that has seen some clear wear and tear on the offensive line, adding an interior lineman with experience and a recent history of going head-to-head with our opponents sounds a lot like tactical preparation disguised as a low-key signing. The Seahawks have been using a tight rotation between their guards and centers, and any breakdown there could implode the pocket for Sam Darnold or sabotage the run game for Kenneth Walker. Signing Lemieux offers more than just depth. It offers a margin to adjust calls, to handle interior blitzes, to keep the pocket clean when things get tight. Old school fans remember all too well what happened in the years we didn't have that margin. Seasons sunk by a fragile line with no backup, forcing the quarterback to pull off miracles on every single snap. Lemieux isn't a magic bullet, but he's a smart piece of insurance. He probably won't be activated as a starter, but he can slide into the rotation if there's fatigue, and he's got enough history to not be a liability in short bursts. The coaching staff has been careful building this O-line, and even though guys like Olu Oluwatimi and Anthony Bradford have held their own, the season is long, and injuries can pop up at any time. What's most interesting is that this move happens the exact week this team needs to show physical dominance and control the clock. With Charbonnet limited and the defense patched together, the offense has to be efficient, patient, and tough. And that starts right there, in the trenches. Shoring up that area isn't a luxury, it's survival. It might seem like just a complimentary piece right now, but anyone who's followed this team for decades knows it's these small decisions that prevent collapses in the biggest moments. The game against the Saints isn't just another week. It's the kind of showdown where you see who's for real and who's just faking it. And speaking of being for real, there's one player who is flirting with history out on that field, and he could put his name right next to legends like Steve Largent. This next block is all about the explosive rise of Jackson Smith-Njigba. Jackson Smith-Njigba is about to write his name in the Seahawks history books in a way few could have possibly imagined. He's already got 2 straight games with over 100 receiving yards, and tomorrow against the Saints, he could achieve something never, ever done by this franchise. 3 in a row. In the season opener, he grabbed 9 passes for 124 yards against the 49ers. The next week, he hauled in 8 catches for 103 yards against the Steelers, leading the team in that category. Sam Darnold has been trusting him big time in critical downfield moments, and Smith-Njigba has not disappointed. His ability to break off routes, get separation from corners, use these subtle shifts in direction, all of it has been making a huge impact. Of course, the challenge now is keeping that pace with a pressured secondary, with opposing defenses studying the film and making adjustments, and with a roster that's depending on a consistent performance from him to take the load off the offense. I compare it to the Steve Largent era, back when a wide receiver was more than a target, he was an identity, a source of pride for the veteran fans. And seeing JSN on that same path, evoking that memory, man, it's emotional. But there's a catch. With 0 touchdowns so far this season, some people are saying the yards aren't enough, that he needs to start converting at the end of his routes, in the end zone, to be more than just promise. If he hits that 3rd straight 100-yard game tomorrow, it won't just be a personal record, it'll be a tremor sent through the league that Seattle has a new number 1 receiver, and if he fails, the criticism will hit harder than any celebration because the void left by Metcalf is massive. And while everyone's watching to see if JSN makes history, there's a hidden tension in the air. Will the rest of the team be able to rise to that same level of ambition? With all this on the table, it's impossible to treat these stories as separate events. They expose a disturbing pattern. The Seahawks seem to be living somewhere between flashes of greatness and chronic symptoms of instability. The talent is there, but does it hold up or does it evaporate when it matters most? The line between redemption and repeating the frustrations of the past has never been this thin. And what's scariest isn't the doubt about who's missing. It's the uncertainty about who is actually going to show up when the game is on the line. Are we watching a new cycle begin, or are we just slapping a new coat of paint on the same old problems? Talk to me, you veterans. Do you trust this team?